How's everyone doing? I'm good, Maurice. This is Operation Metaverse. If you guys are new here, be sure to like and subscribe. Tonight we have a very, very special interview with CGMouse and CGSB Crumb discussing the newest galactic legend, Lord Vader. I know you guys are very excited about this character. We're very excited to bring this to you. They've also given us the opportunity to pre-record some footage, and we're going to play that footage for you guys live on Twitch tonight, September the 8th at 10 o'clock p.m. We can go through together, kind of see the kit in action. I can discuss what's going on. We can kind of break down the kit live on the air. So I look forward to seeing you guys tonight. The link for Twitch is in the description below. I hope you guys enjoy the interview.
Greetings, all you Metamaniacs. We're here today with CGMouse and CGSB Crumb talking about our Lord Vader, the new release, the new galactic legend, the much-awaited one. We're going to talk about his kit. We're going to talk about the makings behind the man, and I'm very excited to get going. Crumb and Mouse, why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell us who you are and what you do for CG.
Absolutely, I can go first. So I'm CGMouse. I work as part of the live operations portion of our design team. I focus mostly right now on characters, but I do a little bit of everything. If you've ever cursed Wrecker or Omega, you can blame or thank me, depending how you want to think about that. And Admiral Piet. Gotta get Piet in there.
Yeah, Piet's awesome. You can't forget about him. I am CGSB Crumb. You know me as the Senior Community Manager. You've probably seen my face many times on interviews and help out with Mr. Doja Fett as well, of course. And yeah, we manage the community, help out with interviews, do all sorts of stuff like that.
Wonderful. Well, let's dive into it. So we have our Lord Vader coming, and he is a very unique character within the Star Wars universe. We'll go through all of the ability names, but maybe we'll release the names right now. What were you looking for when you kind of went into and got his abilities? Like when you're trying to find the essence of this character and bring him into the game, what were you looking to do?
I think the biggest thing is really wanting to convey, like, who was Anakin Skywalker in that moment. Right, he kind of honestly stopped becoming or stopped being Anakin Skywalker and really became Lord Vader. And he did that with a lot of paranoia that people were going to betray him. He did that with a lot of anger, with a lot of hate. And we really wanted to capture that in ability names, ability mechanics, to really give you the sense that you are Lord Vader, and the longer the battle is going on, the more paranoid, the angrier you're getting, and really have that just reflect throughout the entire kit.
Yes, you're making me angry right now just thinking about it. It's very exciting.
It's working.
Yeah, it's all about that moment where he turns to the dark side, right? And he said he shifts from Anakin to Vader. And I mean, he does get betrayed in a lot of different ways throughout those movies there. And so it's, some justified frustration and anger, especially if you see some of the other Clone Wars stuff with what happens to Ahsoka and everything. Like, goes through a pretty rough time leading up to that moment where he shifts over and falls to the dark side. But it's pretty exciting moment in Anakin's life, I'm sure.
So we know that our beloved General Kenobi, who's in the game right now, fantastic character, so fun to play. He actually, kind of kicked Anakin's butt. But Anakin's the second guy coming into this game, so, where is that going to come into play? How are these two characters going to kind of share the meta? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually a really fun thing. The designer who worked on Kenobi and I worked very, very closely on these kits together, because the intention there was to really make sure that there were moments, Achilles' heels, if you were, in both sides of the battlefield, so that with proper play, either side could kind of win out. One of the cool things about Vader is he has a very diverse possibility when it comes to his roster, because he has that Empire tag. And he has so much synergy with the Empire. So that gave us a lot of opportunities to find specific counters that worked really well against Kenobi, but maybe need to be adjusted a little bit for someone like Luke, for example.
Now, just to be clear, like you said, Empire synergy. We have the kit in front of us. We've got to play with him, but the people, the other players, the community probably don't realize this is the Empire's GO. It synergizes with the Empire exclusively, correct? No Sith synergy whatsoever?
Right. So he does have the Sith tag, because it'd be super weird if he didn't. But he himself, his kits, all of his mechanics really rely on synergy with Empire characters, and then also dark side unaligned Force users.
Does that mean he's going to give an extra 16 speed to Darth Vader if he's got both of the tags?
I will say Darth Vader works quite well under him. That might be a very good observation and good tag.
Fun. And that kind of leads into my next question. We have, like, Darth Vader in the game already. Like, he is, really the epitome of Vader, is he not? We're bringing in, like, an unmasked, pre-lava Lord Vader into the game. Lots of people are talking like, my Vader, yes. Let's so what was the decision around making, because I'm assuming he's going to be a lot more powerful than the Vader we have now. Like, just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, conceptually speaking, it was definitely a challenge, and it's something that we did go back and forth on quite a bit of, is Darth Vader that we have in the game now? Like, is it weird if we introduce his younger, more limbed self, and that one is actually stronger? But it came out to where when you watch the movies, like, we're really capturing that moment where he is really falling to the dark side. And the person that beats him is Kenobi, who is also extraordinarily powerful. So it didn't really feel super at odds, thematically speaking, for Lord Vader to be so much stronger right now. If there are opportunities to do another Darth Vader, I would certainly love to see that, but it's tough because his armor never really changes.
Before we dive into Kit, I think it will become a little more apparent. Lord Vader just recently got a little tweak, correct? And it wasn't the most popular change, but did Lord Vader's kits have anything to do with the changing of Darth Vader?
No, not especially. We knew pretty early on internally that we were talking about some of those changes with Darth Vader. And when I was working on Lord Vader's kit, I did consider if those changes would be bad for, like, if Lord Vader was the answer to the Darth Vader changes, basically. The answer is no, not necessarily, but Darth Vader does just naturally serve really well under Lord Vader. When you look at the kit, you will see there are a ton of debuffs, there's a ton of dots, a whole bunch of things that Darth Vader also loves. So it just happened to be that he does work pretty well because we did try to take inspiration from the Darth Vader kit so that they would sort of harmonize.
Well, Vader has the old Vader has AoE dots, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when the opposing team, if they have any amount of dots on them, they're completely immune to turn meter manipulation, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so he's
under Lord Vader.
It's pretty nasty. So anybody that's upset, they're all like, "Oh, my Vader's no good anymore." Incorrect. Incorrect.
Yeah. There's also other mechanics that we specifically have in there, like that Lord Vader has, that Darth Vader will synergize with in a very, very strong way.
Right. So it's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting stuff.
There's definitely a challenge to figure out, like, how do we differentiate them from each other, like, as different characters that feel mechanically interesting and different, but also they are the same character, and, like, their kits, like, then also thematically should kind of work together, because it'd be strange if this same character did two completely different things, but they should also, we know that, like, where they need to fit in the meta, and that how we wanted the squad to fit together as well. So then trying to, like, put all that together is definitely a challenge of, like, balancing 3 or 4 different, masters at any one given time to figure out, like, well, how do we make dots valuable, but also make Vader cool, or Lord Vader cool? You can't just say Vader because that's confusing now. But Lord Vader, like, cool and unique as well. So,
well, I guess before we dive into the kit, I basically try to stall and try to think of creative ways to make it digestible. I'm curious, when you guys developed Lord Vader, did you have Maul finished working in tandem? Like, did you work, because Maul appears to be JMK's cat, right? So Maul and Lord Vader,
absolutely, have
direct synergy with one another. He is the dark side unaligned Force user, apostrophe S. He is the one, right? So it's like, do you guys create these kits together? Did you develop Maul first, then kind of, or vice versa, one before the other? I'm just kind of curious how you guys just blend those two together in such a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were very fortunate that I was working on Lord Vader. It's, and it's always worth saying, this is always a big team effort. It's always very collaborative. And as I was working on Lord Vader, I made sure that there were just lots of communications going back and forth with the designer working on Kenobi, but also the designer working on Maul. And it was really important that we made sure Maul and Vader felt very, very organic together, if that makes sense, right? So the synergy between them came about largely because we were in constant conversation with each other of like, hey, if you make this change, I think it's really going to punch up Vader. And if I do this thing, I think it's really going to punch up Maul. And then we would make those changes. We would test them out. We'd be on shared Zoom calls until very, very late, just going back and forth and trying stuff out.
Lord Vader, his base speed is 390, which makes him the third fastest, I think. Is that correct? He's like 8 speeds slower than Rey and a couple ticks slower than Kylo. But with Maul having that frenzy, we could be talking Lord Vader goes first is the like I win button in Arena, But I guess Kenobi, when you guys talked about how you developed the kits together, you guys gave Kenobi the can't gain or remove turn meter element because of the frenzy, because that's a nightmare. Because Lord Vader, we'll talk, it's crazy how quickly you delete characters because Lord Vader will drop the buff immunity and then Maul just wrecks somebody. So it's pretty.
Is frenzy a bonus turn or bonus turn meter?
Maul starts with it's bonus turn meter.
It's bonus turn meter, so it won't work against opposite.
On paper. That could be
Kenobi.
That won't work. However, so I can tell you that particular addition to Kenobi's kit was not aimed at Lord Vader. There were other considerations when we got to the balance phase for that to solve. But what that did impact is with Lord Vader, there was a later addition to the kit that we wanted to make sure, because it is very important that Maul can go early enough so you can get the most out of him. And we found that if you mod him too much for speed, he can lose a lot of his punch. And so in kind of working with the rest of the design team, the solution that we kind of came up with there is, as of right now, on Lord Vader's kit, Dark Side Underlying Force user allies gain speed up and stealth at the start of battle. And so what that should allow you to do is, even though he's not going to get Frenzy, when you're fighting against Kenobi, he will still get enough speed that it usually pushes him pretty high up on the order.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll notice, there's actually there's something that Lord Vader doesn't do, which is actually really important, is he can't ignore taunt.
Right.
Which allows you to kind of bulwark against him with certain teams, Luke being one of them. And then the other thing that's important to know about Lord Vader is he absolutely hits really hard. He's a powerhouse, but some of his tuning is done in such a way that's really important for him to get his mastery going. Right. And if you can start disassembling his team before that mastery really gets off the ground, you can do a lot to prevent his damage from scaling too crazily.
Yeah. Now, okay, so Lord Vader brings two new kind of unique, for lack of a better term, buffs to the game, right? He brings is it Underestimated is one, and then his ultimate brings about the Ashes of the Republic. Could you kind of explain each of those unique things that he brings to the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So Underestimated is something we would call that internally a status effect. It's not really giving him a specific stat. Mm-hmm. But what it does do is the more stacks of Underestimate he has, the more potent all of his abilities kind of become. They start getting different effects and things like that that kind of get added on. And the way he gets Underestimated is when other characters are taking turns, that starts going up. And that's the sort of tap into, thematically speaking, that kind of taps into that sort of paranoia that he has of like, oh, people are going to betray me. So I'm kind of powering up in preparation for that, right? And then for his other ability, the buff that he does get from his ultimate being End of the Galactic Republic, he gains Ashes of the Republic, which further kind of empowers his abilities even more. It's very similar. It's kind of like the opposite end of like Kenobi's high ground buff, right? It's intended to accomplish this very similar thing that once he gets that, Vader is in a much more empowered state. He's much harder to take out. It's thinking about it in like boss terms, it's kind of like his Enrage, right?
Yes. So, question now: all the abilities, all three of them, basic, Ashes of the Republic, they all have their different little boosts, right? The basic attacks again. I think the buff immunity, the Dark Harbinger gives the true damage, but the something I wanted to ask, the Unshackled Emotions, right? It's deal physical damage to all enemies and inflict daze and 4 damage over time effects, right? So it stacks on some more underestimated. But at Ashes of the Republic, inflict ability block for 1 turn, which can't be dispelled, and increase target enemies' cooldowns by 2. Is that an AoE or just for the target?
So only the target has
Okay.
their cooldowns increased by 2, but everybody is going to have ability block for 1 turn.
So they're all going to have one turn of uncleansable, dispellable ability block, daze, and 4 dots. I guess on a potency tenacity check, right? So that's pretty intense. That's a pretty good one. So
The dots you can remove, but they can't be resisted.
oh, I see it now. Yeah, which can't be resisted. Okay. Now, while he's in Ultimate, can he still gain Underestimated?
He can still gain Underestimated, but he can't gain Ultimate Charge.
Okay. So you can continue to stack that Underestimated while he's in Ultimate. That's pretty nasty.
Yeah, the intention with Underestimated was really the core of kind of Lord Vader is the longer the battle goes on, generally speaking, the better it is for Lord Vader and the worse it is for your opponent. The faster you can take out his team, the way better off you're going to be. I would say he's a bit more reliant than his other dark side GLs on actually having his team present, at least the first time when he pops his ultimate ability. He really needs that mastery.
Mm-hmm.
In that increasing by 2 cooldowns by 2 is, I don't think, something we've done before, and that's like pretty significant. Like increasing by 1, yeah, sure, delays the turn, but increasing by 2 is brutal. Like that can really set back a squad if you use that in the right moment.
And essentially, a locked ability block is increasing everybody's cooldowns by 1.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like, there's no way around that.
Like the leadership, I don't really know how to summarize it without basically just reading it. Right? It's tough to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much on par with the rest of them. 20 speed, 20% mastery, 50% max health, double for Empire. In this case, Empire and Dark Side unaligned Force users. But basically, there's no Sith synergy, but there's a lot of Sith mechanics in the leadership, right? So he's going to pull the Darth Nihilus lead or Malak, and everyone's going to lose all their protection and funnel it into health, correct?
Correct.
So there's going to be no protection whatsoever, which is interesting. And they take 30% reduced damage from enemy light side unaligned Force user attacks, which is, I guess at this point, I guess it's the Rays. Rays is unaligned. Yeah, I guess that's the Rays, that's Cat. So there's a pretty significant amount of characters on the light side. Maybe not yet for the dark side, but light side, they have some good ones.
Yeah.
All you Fulcrum lovers. Sorry. So
It was almost your time.
okay. Little hit.
I wish now.
I missed that. What was it?
I said it was almost Fulcrum's time.
Oh,
I was very
yes,
sad. I
yes,
wish it
yes.
was.
Yeah. Mouse gave a fake out there. Little fake
Poor
out.
Red Harry. It comes from all of my Dungeons and Dragons days as a DM.
All right, but the rest of my question, I guess after we get through it, I have follow up. But like, it's basically Force Empire and Darkside unaligned Force users immune to fear. Empire tanks gain taunt for 2 turns, which is very cool because you have some forgotten about Empire tanks, Stormtrooper, Royal Guard, things of that nature. But when they lose the taunt, they're inflicted with mark for 1 turn, and that marked will be counted as a debuff, right? If people are hitting them, that will stack the elements in the kit.
Correct.
So that's pretty cool. Whether you like it or not, you have to stack up the goodies. So
Yeah, there might be a really important Empire character that can also apply marks to his allies that might be really beneficial for that too.
does that happen to be another Empire character that you may have had a hand in creating?
I don't know why you would imply such a thing.
So okay, and here's the part. Whenever a dark side ally loses a buff, which would I guess would be the taunt or any sort of buff, the dark side and Empire, dark side unaligned for that's a mouthful. Force users, they get 1% mastery until the end of a counter. Whenever a debuffed dark side ally takes damage, this is how Lord Vader gets his ultimate. So anytime a debuffed enemy or a debuffed ally gets hit, that's how you stack his ultimate.
Yeah, and his special one also will provide some ultimate charge as you stack up underestimated.
Okay, so in your opinion, what would be the quickest, most efficient way to stack his ultimate?
Probably the fastest way is to try and get marked onto your Lord Vader as soon as possible. He starts getting hit quite a lot, which will allow you to weather that because he's a GL. He should be fine. And then after that, just making sure that your team has a pretty good number of debuffs and let your enemy just take their turns and continue doing AoE stuff and, heralding their own demise, I guess.
Oh,
Well, and this also ties into Maul, right? Where like
Absolutely.
with Anguish, he's taking damage every time he takes a turn, and then each of those stacks of Anguish is a different instance of damage, right? So he's gonna, like, if he has 5 stacks of Anguish, he takes his turn, he's hit himself 5 times with one. Of course, he has debuffs because he has Anguish on. Then all those are individual triggers for Lord Vader. And then he's going to, if you use that ability where he just keeps going over and over again and decreases his Anguish each turn, he's going to go 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. So he's going to just supercharge Lord Vader real fast if you want to get him off the line with Maul.
Absolutely correct. Yep.
Can he charge his ultimate if he's not the leader?
So the way he would charge his ultimate without being the leader would be that underestimated and special one synergy. So as he gains stacks of underestimated, he would use special one to then charge it up.
so every time, I guess an ally or an enemy take a turn, he would get a stack of underestimated, regardless
Correct.
if he's the leader or not.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Because that's part of his unique.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And there's some anti-Galactic Republic synergy here, but then here's another element of the Sith-like abilities, right? Every character in your team, if they're Empire, Dark Side, unaligned, Force user, I really have to practice saying that. There's three thresholds similar to Malak: 35% health, 50% health, and 80% health. And these are all interesting because you don't have protection, so you're going to have tons and tons of max health. But all of these seem to have not synergize, but seem to kind of prevent the other team from taking advantage of a huge health pool, which is cool. Because while above 35% health, we'll start at the top. While below 80% health, you can't be critically hit. But if you're above 50% health, you're immune to dots and thermal detonators. Now, in testing, did Jawas come and wreck shop, or is that just a...
Jawas, they're real close. No, it's just one of those things. They work in a very similar manner, kind of with their way they're implemented. And so typically, if we're kind of targeting one of them, we sort of have to target both. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to that. Mm-hmm. In the case with Lord Vader, where we didn't want him taking a bunch of the percent damage from it, it was important that we were able to call out both as a sort of future-proofing thing.
Which is very, yeah, that was... I do like to see, and the more recent kits have been a little better about being proactive, right? About maybe, being a little more proactive than some of the other kits, because we've seen the last, a couple times characters get changes. People don't seem to like change. This kind of nips everything in the bud right away, which is good to see. I think that's really nice. But
well, that's just to speak to that. That's another reason why when you read this thing, it says while below 80% health can't be critically hit. It's always dicey when you have just complete immunity to something. Mm-hmm. Speaking from a design perspective, that can be very problematic for us to obviously design around. And with Lord Vader, we wanted to make it so that there were moments, there were thresholds where you could kind of take advantage of that before he got the crit immunity. It was very, very difficult, but there were testing scenarios where because the team was above 80% health for the target, you were able to get a really big hit in there that particular target couldn't quite recover from, which was really important.
Well, it's kind of like the strategy around Malak, right? Where if you can trigger multiple thresholds immediately and try and just get him to a point where there's no coming back from it, right from the start, you can do a lot, but otherwise you're going to have problems if you just slowly just sort of chip away at them over time.
Yeah, very similar kind of concept.
Yeah. Or like the Ray team, that there's instances where if you catch a resistance character or anybody on the Ray team at 51, 52% health, you can just whack him and it will bypass the immunity altogether. So that's good to see. And the last one is above 35% health. Enemies attacks, they are immune to max health reduction and other damage that are based on max health. So like shocks, so like exposed, things of that nature.
Yeah, and specifically like Malak. Malak isn't going to be able to first turn just eliminate somebody. Although that was really funny to see in testing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the wording's a little bit different here. That there's like while above at 35%, while above 50%, and then while below 80%, which is kind of weird because some of like the Malik one is just like tiered down as you go down the thresholds here, whereas two of these are always active from when you're above this threshold, and then one of them gets activated a little bit later.
We're gonna call this the anti-CLS leadership. You guys didn't want my you didn't want my rebels doing any damage at all, did you? That one's out. So yeah,
One other thing you brought up earlier was around tanks and stuff for the Empire team, and part of this is also the Royal Guard rework as well. And there's some details around that that'll be going live. I'm probably around this time, but we can talk a little bit to that about he's going to have substantial boost to his max health with his new unique and things like that, and he'll be able to do be a decent part of that team. I don't know if he's going to be the best option, but he'll definitely be a much better option than he is now.
Yeah, just to speak to that a little bit more, Royal Guard did get a bit of a facelift, as Crumb said, and one of the intentions there is that he would be good under any Empire leader, but especially good with Lord Vader. And in testing, that's panned out really, really well.
Man,
Exciting.
I know, I didn't know that was happening, so that's just kind of a whoa moment. So, all right, Royal Guard, very nice. Like I actually had, that was one of my follow-up questions. Is we have developed tons of these Empire units to get the other GLs, like Royal Guard, like Director Krennic, like some of these other Tarkin. I was curious to see if any of them would actually fit with Lord Vader. It sounds like Royal Guard could possibly do so.
There's a lot of options, which was really interesting during balance, by the way, because there's just a lot of really good Empire characters. You have Gideon, you have Thrawn. Like there are so many really good, potent Empire characters that that's another reason why when you look at Lord Vader and you're trying to discern, like, okay, what's the best Lord Vader team? The answer is there's probably quite a few of them, honestly.
Would you say that's the case with all releases where you're kind of seeing there's a whole bunch of different teams that you can build around the Galactic Legend, or is this special to Lord Vader? Because usually we settle on something. Like there's a diversity in Arena for a few days, and then a week a little less, and then a couple weeks, and now there's there's Padme and C-3PO and Gas, and that's pretty much it with Kenobi.
Yeah, I mean, not even just GLs, but I would say almost every character that I've personally worked on, there's been at least a couple of teams that are pretty competitive with each other. Inevitably, there's one team that people tend to default to the most, and sometimes that's just a matter of convenience. Like, I'm sure there might be like 5 different teams that are close, but if this one is good enough that I can generally go along, I mean, that's the team you're going to use, right? So I would say, in my recent memory, probably the GL that was maybe the hardest to be expansive was probably Kenobi, just by the nature of the tags that he was working with, right?
And I think there's also just like in Grand Arena having already existing teams to work with, right? So that you don't want to necessarily like disrupt too much of that because there are a bunch of squads you're already using. And then how does that then fit into the new GL with Lord Vader as well? Like, how do we use these characters that we already know that people have slots for, or maybe don't have a great place for, and would make a great spot on this team as well? Like, there's a lot of considerations outside of just like obviously a good arena team, but how does it work across a ton of different modes as well? So it's a balancing act, to say the least. I'm glad I'm not a designer.
How's he working the raid?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I think there's some interesting possibilities, but in the testing that I was able to do, he probably isn't going to give Kenobi a run for his money.
See?
Hey, you can scoop up $1 million with C if you get lucky and get a couple mallet gobbles. You get $1 million.
I would say I had better success with him than I did with C, but
yeah,
Is that a technical term? A couple mallet gobbles?
Yes. Hanging with the developers, using technical terms. Yeah.
Form of measurement we use internally.
Oh,
it
now I'm
shows up
blushing.
if you go to the southern part of the U.S. and you look in the game, it actually says it right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot it's localized like that.
Yeah, as long as you can see it through the gravy that's splashed on the screen. Yeah. If you had to pick the team, what would be the team, and what would be your opening few moves for this You pick any team. Just a good general place for people to start. Maybe it suffers. Maybe it's a little weaker against this team, a little better against this. Just a good starting 5 for somebody to get a good grasp of the kit.
Sure, and we'll assume Maul isn't there at that point, because I mean Maul's just a shoe-in, so let's assume this is without Maul, right?
Yeah.
Admiral Piet, Darth Vader, Royal Guard, and then I'm gonna go with Moff Gideon. Piet, one of the really important things that he actually provides that I don't want to gloss over because I think this is a really important part of the kit, is Lord Vader says that whenever a dark side ally loses a buff, Empire and dark side underlying Force user allies gain 1% mastery stacking until the end of encounter. Piet has a very common buff called Emperor's Trap that works for this. Every time you're losing those stacks of Emperor's Trap, it's going to be charging that mastery. And so just very naturally, by having him around, that mastery is going to stack very, very quickly. And then Gideon will be able to provide a lot of crowd control, as well as a bit of the, even though the team doesn't have protection inherently, his ability to still kind of like give that bonus protection will work, which can be very helpful with kind of weathering a few of the larger storms, like a Rey ultimate, for example. And then, Darth Vader needs no introduction on the many things that he can bring to the team. So,
no Thrawn. What about Thrawn?
Oh, I've got Thrawn in here, but Thrawn's kind of like my sideboard,
Oh man, Thrawn on the sideboard.
So a question about Piet's buffs. Let's say you get a couple turns off in a row, and he's got a few stacks. Just do each of those stacks count? When let's say he's got 3 stacks and he loses 3, does that count 3 times?
3%.
Oh boy. Okay. All right, gotta have some tightly clocked teams. Yeah, gonna have to fire off a bunch of turns.
Something else too to highlight with Piet, and I just love Piet, I guess, is if you uncharacteristically apply inevitable failure to Lord Vader, one of the things Piet does is he calls allies to assist that have inevitable failure. So you can get Lord Vader to assist, and if you get really good RNG, he'll assist twice.
And will he assist 4 times if he has the
Can't have that buff.
The ultimate? I guess you can't have. Can you buff him up with? This is just getting way out of hand. I'm sorry. I'll just go ahead.
Well, no, it's actually really important. With the basic, super important. He's dealing damage again. He's not actually doing separate attacks.
Okay.
So when he attacks, you'll see in a single attack, you'll see multiple damage.
So it's like Sabine, not Cam.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not like an actual assist, basically.
Okay. Ultimates.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned the ultimates. So tell us about the ultimate.
Well, it's an ultimate. There we go.
Good talk. Thank you guys.
Yeah, cool. Wrap this up now. Go. Thanks, folks. Thanks for watching.
So with his ultimate, he has 2 different states that he can trigger it. One is a 65% ultimate charge, and then the other is going to be at 100% ultimate charge. And the basic gist of what his ultimate will do is he will take a percentage of Darkseid allies' current mastery, and if they're not Empire and or Darkseid Unlike Force user, if they're just regular old Darkseid, they will lose that same amount. So he takes 50% for himself away from them. However, Empire, Darkseid Unlike Force user allies don't lose their mastery from it. And then if he uses 100% of his ultimate ability, he does that, but at 75% mastery instead of 50, dispels all debuffs on himself, takes a bonus turn, reduces his cooldowns by 1, and then he will gain that Ashes of the Republic buff for, would we eventually tune that to? 5 turns.
5 turns, yeah.
It's like that went through a lot of number tweaks. I couldn't remember where we landed.
And is he a Galactic Legend that can repeatedly trigger his ultimate, or is this a one-time thing?
Absolutely trigger it multiple times. The best way to kind of think about his ultimate and his team is our batteries that charge him up. So every time he's using that ultimate ability, his batteries are charging him up to make him stronger.
Yeah, so you want to capture as much master as you can to your supporting cast, so he just takes it from him, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So you had asked earlier about a good opening move. Probably I usually find that using Unshackled Emotions first is usually a pretty good way just to distribute some dots and things like that. And then depending on your speed, just getting inevitable failure on Lord Vader as soon as possible, and continuing to get people to take turns so that he can just empower everybody's mastery much faster, which then empowers his.
How's he on defense? How's that AI?
I will say that his AI is a little bit more sophisticated in some ways. It's always a challenge with AI not to make it too good, obviously. But with him, we had some pretty favorable results on defense.
Good.
Yeah, it's also really important. We want to make sure to give players agency over countering these teams as well as using them right. And that's one of the reasons as you're looking through this kit, as we're talking about it, there's ebbs and flows to where Vader's power is, right? Like he gets very empowered when he has his ultimate ability up, but in the early stages, as he's still kind of ramping up, still building underestimated, still building mastery, there's opportunities to kind of take away from Vader to set yourself up for better success.
So the mastery that your characters gain from the leadership, like, so let's say my Darth Vader, he'll have 40% mastery from the leadership. Does that 40% get gobbled up from like Lord Vader? Does that count towards his mastery stacking for the ultimate?
It does count towards it, and in Darth Vader's case, it won't get removed from Darth Vader since he has that tag.
Ooh, very nice. Okay.
He's an Empire or Dark Side unaligned Force user.
Yeah, it's early on. Initial version of this kit is he took the mastery, didn't matter who you were. But I'll be honest, it didn't feel very good. Like, yeah, Lord Vader got really empowered, and that was great. But all of your other guys suddenly hitting like wet noodles didn't feel great. So,
I mean, Lord Vader's a little bit of a team player, more than someone like Kylo, right? Like he's, he may be choking his allies out occasionally, but he's at least saying, "Go do this peon and figure this out. And when you fail, I will kill you. But try at least."
All right, I guess I got one more. Unshackled Emotions. Like, if you have the max stacks of 60 underestimated is the most you can have, right? This ability deals 2.5% more damage. How much could you get that to hit for? Have you seen big numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen pretty darn large numbers with that one. That actually used to be scaled much higher. So it's at 2.5 times now. I think it's, generally speaking, when we start with something, we're like, okay, let's start with this number, and we usually start higher and then scale back. That ability used to be 5% per stack. Needless to say, that was way too much. But here we are. I think it also ignored like a portion of the team's protection. Also, obviously, did not remain.
Yeah, just from a raid, we mentioned the raid. Just from a raid standpoint, I don't really see any, like, except unless you're fighting a raid boss, then it does this. I don't really see too much of that at all in the kit. Maybe I overlooked it, but
like raid buster type things.
They're like raid exceptions to like raid bosses and stuff. No, I don't think there's many around in this kit.
Like his stacking damage still applies to raid bosses.
Yeah, there wasn't really too much in here as we were going through where we felt like we really had to pull back in his kit and say, okay, raid bosses can't be affected by these things. For the most part, raid bosses inherently had things to already deal with a lot of this stuff. And if you're doing something like, a Rancor, like there's so much AoE damage in the challenge one that a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, Lord Vader would start losing people, therefore he's losing mastery for his ultimate, and it just kind of spiraled downwards.
Is there anything else you'd like to pimp about Admiral Piet?
I love Admiral Piet. I could talk about Admiral Piet for days. That guy was he was a very challenging character to implement, and it's funny because we a lot of times now when I'm working with newer designers and they have questions, I'm like, hold on, I think Piet did something like this, and so we have to go and look at the game data for that. It's pretty comical. It's kind of become an inside joke at this point. But yeah, no,
what was your first character, Mouse?
My first character was Admiral Piet.
It was that for me. I thought that was the case. It was your first character to implement. It was pretty nuts.
Yeah, it was Piet, and then after that it was Queel. Then I think it was Razor Crest after that.
Pretty building quite the resume there. Yeah,
stacking them on there. So.
I do love some Queel. I love some Queel.
Oh man, I love to hear that. He was a lot of fun.
Is there any part of the kit? Because this is your baby, right? Is there any part of the kit that maybe we overlooked that you think is important for the people to know, like that maybe we've overlooked, didn't mention, didn't give enough justice to.
We've never said is unique, which is called Twisted Prophecy. I was pretty proud of that name. But
There you have it. Yeah, so there. Yeah, okay.
yeah, there's a few aspects of his unique that I think are really kind of stand out. Lord Vader himself, he's immune to turn meter manipulation, which can be very important in a variety of matchups. And also, his attacks can't be evaded. So this means your Jedi Foresight does nothing against him, and that's for all of his abilities. And even though in his leader he will take protection from allies and turn it into health, just like Nihilus does, on his unique he actually also has that. And the reason we did that is because him not having protection is just a core part of how we envisioned this character. So that's why he does it on his unique as well as his leadership. And then at the start of each of his turns, he will inflict damage over time abilities or damage over time effects. So pretty much he will just constantly be barraging you with damage over time.
And those can't be resisted, correct? Like they can go through tenacity up.
Correct. They can't be resisted, but they can be dispelled,
Mm-hmm.
which is an important distinction there. And then he is specifically designed to have some good synergy against both Galactic Republic and Jedi enemies. Underestimated actually will double down if you have a Galactic Republic Jedi.
Feels thematic and like where is moment in time where he's frustrated about. Like he's not happy with the Jedi. He's certainly not happy with the Galactic Republic at that time. Seems on brand for him.
And at that time, there is no Galactic Republic.
Yeah, or the ashes of the Galactic Republic at this point. You're right.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on this. Let the community get their hands on it, see what type of cool stuff. Like you mentioned, there's so many Empire characters. There's tons of teams that people can build. I'm really interested to see how people use them, what they come up with. Just to kind of put them in the hands of the people and see what happens. So I'm pretty excited. Very, very excited.
We always expect the players to do stuff that we don't expect. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this, because I imagine there'll be some squads and stuff that we didn't think about, or that when we tested we didn't seem as powerful as they were, and then people will come up with some extra fun stuff with them.
It's kind of the motto of our channel. We just say when people get all, concerned about a change that happens, we're like, don't worry, you guys are going to break it anyway. What are you worried about?
It doesn't matter how long I do this job. Every release, I'm always going to have a little bit of drop in the pit of my stomach, but also excitement. It's both feelings all at the same time.
Yeah, letting it out into the world to see.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited, and it's going to be interesting to see what people build, and I just hope that people appreciate this version of Vader.
Yeah, I think it's one of the really cool things about CG, and this is not the case in all studios and for other games, but like obviously it's a collaborative process, as you said, Mouse, right? Like a lot of people had their hands on this, helping you out and coordinating with the Maul person who's working on Maul and the person who's working on Kenobi, all that stuff. But you get to kind of like take this thing from the design space that you had originally and then build it up over time to be this kit, and it's really your baby going out there as well, which is pretty exciting. I think you get to really work on this thing from kind of start to finish on it. It's not like you hand it off to someone else to finalize or anything like that. Like with most of our kits, it's someone gets super deep into this one kit and that's all their focus is. I mean, obviously there's other stuff they're working on, but like this is the thing that they care about more than anything else in a given time. And it's always fun to talk to the designer and just see like what's in their head at a given moment, because they're thinking about some other character, deep and diving on something where it's like I'm talking about what's getting released and you're already 2 steps ahead of this. So
yeah, I think I told you leading up to this, I was like, hold on, I got to go reread all the stuff I did. I got to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a long kit. This will be, I don't know if it's the longest, but it's one of the longest for sure. The leadership anyway, hey?
That leader is a bit of a doozy. That is quite a long one.
It's a doozy. And it's interesting is I think I'm guessing that like some of those pieces could have come out into the unique, but he just feels like you wanted him to be the leader. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually one of the big pillars. Whenever we meet, we talk about a character, we kind of establish some pillars of identity for them. And we really wanted Lord Vader to be the leader that you use. there's cases where if you want to try him as, a character not in the leader slot, sure, have at it. But he was definitely designed with what we call as the core of his complexity is in that leader ability, kind of for that reason.
Oh, I had one more question. This might be a question for you, Crumb. It's so when the requirements for General Kenobi came out for folks who were above 7 million GP, it was something that we could kind of get on time. I'm not sure about. I might just be a little bit behind with a Bad Batch. I'm not sure, but was this meant to be just like to have the bar raised a little bit for how accessible this character is for the community?
I think like when we think about the requirements for the character, they kind of like are a snapshot of like where the community is right now. And so if you look at some of the older GLs, like we try and keep the amount of effort required to get the next GL around the same. And so as like people's rosters have evolved and you have more characters, that shifts it down a little bit farther. And also there should be a reason to then go for the next Galactic Legend. Like I've got these 4, this one should be my next one, and I've already got this far in my roster at this point, so it makes sense then that the bar kind of moves along with that. But it's as you said, like it's definitely got some difficult requirements in there, but we think that that's sort of in line with the rest of them as people's rosters have grown over time. So hurry up on Bad Batch.
Will we get will T-Bunny and I get 50 Zen Biddles once this interview is over?
Please.
Is this a bribe we're asking for now? I didn't agree to this. Wait a second.
No, we're just straight up begging. This is no bribe. Thank you guys so much for touring us around Lord Vader's kit. It looks like an amazing new Galactic Legend for the game. SB Crumb, Mouse, thank you so much for your time, for coming out. And anything else? When is the release going to happen?
Yeah, so we have I think this interview is going out on the 9th, and it should be in the update this week. So in a couple days, you should see this.
The Lord Vader will be in the game in a couple of days?
Yep, right after this interview. Sorry, this is coming out on this, I believe, on the 7th or 8th, and so it'll be live in game on the 8th or the 9th, depending on when the update is. It'll go into the journey guide like the other Galactic Legends, so you'll be able to get access to it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Wonderful. All right, may the Force be with you. See you on the holotables.
Bye, folks. Thanks for having us.
Take it easy.
Bye.